In the peaceful, sunny hills of Hawaii Loa Ridge, a wealthy and quiet neighborhood, something terrible happened that broke the calm. Inside a beautiful house, the body of Gary Joseph Ruby was found buried in concrete. A shocking end for a man who was once full of life. How did a kind and smart 73-year-old retiree meet such a terrible fate? What made a young man who seemed to have a bright future do something so awful? Was it a love story that turned deadly, or was it all about greed? As the investigation begins, it reveals dark secrets about trust, betrayal, and hidden dangers in a place that seemed perfect. This story will pull you in, make you wonder, and leave you thinking about who can truly be trusted. The following content may be disturbing to some viewers as it discusses sensitive topics related to assault. Proceed with discretion. Welcome to the Crime Series. I am glad to have you join us on another video. Kindly subscribe, like, and share. Let me know where you are watching from. Gary Joseph Ruby was a 73-year-old retiree living in the tranquil and upscale neighborhood of Hawaii Loa Ridge, Honolulu. Known for his quiet and unassuming nature, Gary had built a life marked by intellectual pursuits and a dedication to personal growth. Those who knew him described him as a kind and sophisticated man with a reserved demeanor. Having spent much of his earlier life in Montreal, Canada, Gary developed a passion for learning and self-improvement from a young age. He pursued a law degree and later relocated to Hawaii, where he sought a peaceful and fulfilling retirement. Despite living far from his birthplace, Gary maintained close ties with his family, particularly his brother, Lorne Ruby. Lorne recalled Gary's thoughtful nature, noting how he always remembered special occasions and took the time to stay connected with loved ones. Throughout his life, Gary was known for being meticulous and well-organized. His residence reflected his personality, a well-kept and tastefully decorated home that provided him with a serene environment. The house, a $2.2 million property, became a symbol of his accomplishments and the peaceful life he had crafted for himself. In his later years, Gary found companionship in a relationship with a significantly younger man named Juan Tahor. While friends and family were initially surprised by the age difference, they respected Gary's choice as he seemed content and happy. However, beneath the surface, tensions were brewing that would soon lead to a tragic and gruesome end. Juan Tahor, a Colombian national, became a central figure in the tragic story of Gary Ruby. Young, ambitious, and enigmatic, Juan's life before meeting Gary remains shrouded in mystery. What is known is that he entered the United States with aspirations of building a better life, seeking opportunities that his home country could not offer. At the age of 23, he met the much older Gary, forming a relationship that seemed, at least outwardly, unusual to those who knew the retiree. Their relationship progressed quickly, with Juan moving into Gary's upscale home in the affluent neighborhood of Hawaii Loa Ridge. This sudden shift in Gary's life raised some eyebrows among his close friends and family. However, Gary, described by those who knew him as kind-hearted and trusting, appeared genuinely invested in his newfound relationship. Whether out of genuine affection or naivety, he welcomed Juan into his life and home without hesitation. Juan, in contrast, presented himself as charismatic and confident. He knew how to navigate social situations, often charming those he met. Despite his youth, he carried himself with an air of maturity that belied his age. This charm, however, masked a more sinister intent lurking beneath the surface, an intent that would ultimately lead to tragedy. In early 2022, the relationship between 73-year-old Gary Joseph Ruby and his 23-year-old partner, Juan Tahor, took a tragic and deadly turn. The two had been involved in a romantic relationship that, at least on the surface, seemed consensual and affectionate. However, this outward appearance masked underlying tensions and secrets that would ultimately lead to a horrific crime. The pivotal event occurred shortly after an intimate moment between the couple. Gary disclosed to Juan that he was HIV positive, a revelation that reportedly enraged the younger man. In his rage, Juan placed a belt around Gary's neck and tightened it until he lost consciousness. Once Gary was unconscious, Juan took further steps to ensure his death. He dragged Gary's body to the bathroom and used a kitchen knife to slit his wrists. The act was meant to stage the scene as a suicide, creating a false narrative that Gary had taken his own life. Juan's attempt to manipulate the circumstances around Gary's death revealed not only his intention to evade responsibility, but also the cold, calculated nature of his actions. Juan's motive, as would become clearer later on, was not merely a reaction to Gary's health disclosure. His subsequent actions indicated a deeper and more sinister intent. By eliminating Gary, Juan appeared to be positioning himself to take control of the victim's assets, including a $2.2 million home and a luxury vehicle. Juan's efforts did not stop at merely hiding the body. After sealing Gary's fate in the concrete tomb, he began living in the house as though nothing had happened. He continued to drive Gary's car and even tried to assume ownership of Gary's property by forging documents. This brazen attempt to claim the deceased's assets highlighted Juan's primary motive. During this period, Juan displayed a calm exterior, interacting with neighbors and maintaining a semblance of normalcy. He showed no outward signs of distress or guilt, aiming to divert attention away from any suspicions regarding Gary's sudden disappearance. However, beneath this facade lay the grim truth of his calculated crime, a truth that would soon unravel under the scrutiny of law enforcement. Gary Joseph Ruby had always maintained close communication with his brother, Lauren Ruby. Living alone in his Honolulu residence, Gary's daily routines and social habits were well known to those close to him. When weeks passed without any contact from Gary, Lauren grew increasingly concerned. In early March 2022, after several unanswered calls and messages, Lauren decided to take action. He contacted the Honolulu Police Department on March 7, 2022, and requested a welfare check at Gary's residence. Lauren emphasized that it was highly unusual for his brother to go silent for so long. He also provided police with details about Juan, the man Gary had recently become involved with, believing it might be crucial information. Upon arriving at the upscale property in Hawaii Lower Ridge, officers found nothing immediately alarming from the outside. The house appeared in order, with no signs of forced entry or visible disturbance. They knocked on the door and were met by Juan Tahor Baron, who answered their questions in a calm and composed manner. Juan informed the officers that he was the new owner of the house, claiming he had purchased it from Gary Ruby years earlier. The officers, finding this claim odd, asked for documentation to support Juan's statement. He produced what appeared to be forged documents, indicating a transfer of ownership. However, a quick check of the official property records revealed that the house was still listed under Gary Ruby's name. Growing suspicious, the officers decided to conduct a more thorough investigation of the property. Although Juan insisted that Gary had moved away, officers found inconsistencies in his story. The absence of any communication from Gary to his family further raised concerns. Police officers continued to press Juan for more information, but he maintained his fabricated narrative. Without clear evidence of wrongdoing at that moment, the officers refrained from making an immediate arrest, but noted that something felt off about the entire situation.
As we go into the most intense part of this video, kindly like and subscribe to this channel. It gives me motivation to create more videos. If you love this video and wish to see more, kindly subscribe.
The following day, police continued their search of the residence. It was during this thorough examination that they entered the master bathroom and encountered something unusual. The bathtub appeared to be filled with a concrete-like substance. The surface was covered with a layer of coffee grounds, an apparent attempt to mask any odors emanating from beneath. This peculiar sight was enough to warrant further investigation. Specialized forensic teams were called in to assist with the excavation of the bathtub's contents. As they carefully chipped away at the hardened material, a grim discovery awaited them. Embedded within the concrete was the decomposing body of 73-year-old Gary Ruby. The macabre scene confirmed their worst fears. This was not a case of natural causes or an accident, but a deliberate act to conceal a murder. The discovery sent shockwaves through the local community, which had always been known for its tranquility and affluence. Residents of Hawaii Lower Ridge, accustomed to peaceful living, found themselves grappling with the horrifying reality that a brutal crime had taken place in their midst. The police immediately launched a homicide investigation, with Juan Tahor Baron as the prime suspect. Authorities began to piece together the chain of events leading up to Gary's death. Their investigation revealed a troubling narrative of deception and betrayal. Juan's sudden presence in Gary's life, his false claims about property ownership, and his suspicious behavior at the scene all pointed to a calculated attempt to cover up a heinous crime. Upon realizing that his heinous actions would soon come to light even before discovery of the victim's body, Juan Tahor made a desperate bid to escape justice. As law enforcement intensified their search following the discovery of Gary Ruby's body encased in concrete, Juan knew his days of freedom were numbered. On March 9, 2022, he fled Hawaii in a frantic attempt to evade capture, setting his sights on the mainland United States. U.S. Marshals, working in collaboration with the Honolulu Police Department, quickly tracked his movements. Their investigation led them to California, where Juan was believed to be hiding. Acting on a tip, authorities located a Mexico-bound bus in Anaheim, California, which they suspected Juan might be using as a means to cross the border and escape into Mexico. When law enforcement boarded the bus, they found Juan hiding in an enclosed crawlspace beneath a bench. His efforts to conceal himself were futile in the face of the thorough investigation and coordinated pursuit by the U.S. Marshals and Los Angeles Police. Following his capture by U.S. Marshals and local law enforcement, Juan Tahor was extradited back to Hawaii to face charges for the brutal murder of Gary Joseph Ruby. Upon his return, investigators wasted no time in questioning him about the grisly discovery made in Gary's home. Under the pressure of the investigation and overwhelming evidence, Juan provided a chilling confession. He admitted to the murder of Gary Ruby, detailing the sequence of events that led to the horrific crime. According to Juan, the fatal incident was sparked by an argument following Gary's disclosure of his HIV-positive status. This revelation allegedly enraged Juan, who then decided to take violent action against his partner. Juan described how, in the heat of the moment, he placed a belt around Gary's neck and tightened it until he lost consciousness. Despite noticing that Gary was still alive, Juan did not seek medical assistance. Instead, he proceeded to drag the unconscious victim to the bathroom, where he used a kitchen knife to slit his wrists, staging the scene to resemble a suicide. The confession was both detailed and damning, giving law enforcement a clear picture of the premeditated and calculated nature of the crime. The most disturbing element of Juan's confession was his method of concealing the body. He recounted how he found several bags of concrete in Gary's garage and went to a local store to purchase additional bags. He then proceeded to fill the bathtub with the mixture, encasing Gary's lifeless body in concrete. To further mask the smell of decomposition, he sprinkled coffee grounds over the concrete surface, believing this would be sufficient to delay detection. Following his confession, Juan was formally charged with second-degree murder, identity theft, and theft of property. The identity theft charge stemmed from his attempts to transfer ownership of Gary's $2.2 million property into his own name using forged documents. The theft of property charge was linked to his use of Gary's vehicle and personal belongings after the murder. In court, Juan initially appeared emotionless and detached, a demeanor that unsettled both the prosecution and the defense. Prosecutors argued that Juan's actions were driven by greed and a desire to gain control of Gary's assets. They pointed to the premeditated nature of the crime and the lengths Juan went to in order to cover his tracks as clear evidence of his guilt. Defense attorneys, on the other hand, attempted to paint a different picture. They claimed that Juan was under significant emotional distress at the time of the crime, suggesting that his actions were not premeditated, but rather a result of an impulsive outburst. Despite their efforts, Juan's detailed confession and the forensic evidence collected from the crime scene left little room for doubt. Prosecutors, noting the severity of the crime and Juan's attempts to evade capture, sought a lengthy prison sentence. They recommended a 20-year sentence, a term they believed was fitting given the brutality of the act and the emotional toll it had taken on Gary Ruby's family and friends. The investigation and legal proceedings in the case of Gary Ruby's murder encountered a significant hurdle when allegations of prosecutorial misconduct surfaced. This unexpected twist in the case added a layer of complexity to an already intricate legal battle. The controversy began when it was revealed that a deputy prosecutor involved in the case had used sensitive crime scene photographs during public presentations. These images, which were intended to remain confidential as part of the investigation, were allegedly shown without proper authorization, potentially compromising the integrity of the case. The defense argued that such actions could have prejudiced the jury pool, thereby jeopardizing the fairness of the upcoming trial. Upon learning of the misconduct, the defense promptly filed motions requesting either the dismissal of the case or the disqualification of the entire prosecutor's office. This move was aimed at ensuring that the defendant, Juan Tahor, would receive a fair trial without the risk of undue influence from prior public exposure to the case details. In response to the allegations, the prosecutor's office took decisive action by terminating the employment of the deputy prosecutor responsible for the breach. This step was likely taken to mitigate any further damage to the prosecution's credibility and to reassure the public that the office remained committed to upholding justice. In late 2024, Juan Tahor made an unexpected move by seeking to withdraw his guilty plea. This development introduced a new layer of complexity to the ongoing legal proceedings. Juan claimed that he did not fully understand the plea agreement he had entered into earlier in the year. His reasoning was based on two primary factors: the lack of an appropriate translator during critical discussions and the influence of prescription medication that he alleged impaired his judgment. Juan testified that his former legal representatives had pressured him into accepting the plea deal without ensuring he comprehended all the terms and implications. He expressed concerns that he had been rushed into making a life-altering decision without adequate time to reflect or obtain proper legal counsel in a language he could fully understand. This plea withdrawal motion was seen by many as a last-ditch effort to improve his legal standing, given the overwhelming evidence against him. Despite the prosecution's opposite stance, the court took the motion seriously, recognizing the gravity of the situation and the potential implications on the final sentencing. A hearing was scheduled to evaluate the merit of Juan's claims, during which his former attorneys were called to testify about the circumstances surrounding the plea deal. Additionally, medical experts were brought in to assess whether the medications Juan had been taking at the time could have significantly impaired his ability to make an informed decision. As of early 2025, the court's decision on whether to grant Juan's request to withdraw his plea remained pending. The outcome of this hearing would significantly influence the trajectory of the case and the ultimate justice sought for the late Gary Ruby. As the case progresses, we will be back to update you all.
Loved what you saw? Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to join our growing community. Your support keeps us creating.